Well, today we're going all the way back to the beginning,
The very beginning.
to the creation story,
Hmm.
as told in Genesis chapter 1.
Yeah.
We're going to break down that step-by-step account of creation, but we're going to try and go a little deeper than usual.
Looking for some of those hidden layers, huh?
Exactly. We'll be looking at the specific order of things, that phrase, God saw that it was good,
Mm-hmm.
the imagery. What do you think, what might these elements tell us about creation itself?
Well, that's what we're here to find out.
So Genesis starts with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Simple, right?
Simple, but it really sets the stage for everything that comes after.
It does. It really does.
It establishes God right in the beginning as the sole creator, existing before everything else.
And that first act of creation, you're right, it brings forth the entire universe, the heavens and the earth.
Yeah, the whole shebang.
And then we get this picture of the early earth, formless, empty, darkness. I always picture this dark, swirling,
Primordial soup.
kind of. It's powerful though, right? It's all potential, like a blank canvas.
Waiting for the divine artist to get to work.
Totally. And it's so interesting to contrast that with all the order that comes after. Going from formlessness to form, darkness to light, emptiness to this incredible abundance.
Wow, from chaos to creation.
And speaking of light, that's the first thing God creates. Let there be light, and boom, there it is. But here's where things get a little interesting. The sun, the moon, and the stars, those don't show up until day 4. What do you make of that?
It's a good question. That light first sequence has puzzled a lot of people for a very long time.
Right. You would think the sun would be first.
You would, wouldn't you? Well, some see it as I guess, a way of highlighting the spiritual side of light, that it's more important than the physical sources.
So it's like light represents something deeper.
Deeper, yeah. And, this idea of light as a divine thing, you see that in other cultures too, in their creation myths.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So maybe it's not so much about a real timeline, but more about saying that light is the most important element.
Like a cosmic principle.
Exactly. And even before the sun, moon, and stars, God separates light from darkness, establishes day and night.
It's true, yeah. So even before the physical light sources.
It's like setting the stage, you know, creating this rhythm, this basic framework for life.
It's almost like God is saying, okay, here are the ground rules, now let's get started.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And with each act of creation, there's this phrase, and God saw that it was good.
I love that phrase. What does that tell us?
Well, it shows purpose, a sense of intention. It's like a divine seal of approval.
I see what you mean. It's not just that things work, it's that they are good in themselves.
Exactly. And we're going to see that idea of goodness come up again and again. But for now, let's move on to day 2.
Okay, day 2. What happens?
Well, God creates a kind of vault or dome to separate the waters above from the waters below.
So that creates the sky.
That creates the sky, another boundary being established.
It's like God is building this cosmic house.
Layer by layer, first light, then a sky. What do you think comes next?
Well, if we've got sky, we need
land. You got it. On day 3, we see dry land emerging, the waters recede, and there you have it, land and sea.
And of course, God saw that it was good.
Naturally. So now we've got light, sky, land. The basics for a world, right? But it's not empty.
That's not what happens next.
God creates plants, all kinds of vegetation, trees, flowers, everything, each one with its own seeds, its own kind.
That's so interesting because the plants are there before the sun.
You're right. It's like God is saying, look, life can exist even before you think it's possible.
It really makes you think.
It does, doesn't it? I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered the first 3 days, and there's already so much to unpack. What are your first impressions?
I'm struck by the power of the language. It's so poetic. But also the order of creation. It's, well, unexpected. It's making me think about how everything is connected and how life can exist in ways we might not even imagine.
You're hitting on some really important points. And that's what makes this deep dive so exciting. We're not just retelling the story, we're exploring it.
Exactly. And we've only just begun. We still have 3 more days of creation to go.
Mhm.
The sun and the moon, all those incredible creatures, and of course, humankind.
Made in the image of God. I can't wait to see where this takes us. You were curious about the order of creation, right?
I was.
Well, on day 4, we finally get to the sun, the moon, and stars.
The heavy hitters. It's interesting though, because it seems like we go from this like foundational, almost symbolic light
Yeah,
to something much more practical.
right. God sets them up to govern day and night, to mark time. There's signs and seasons.
Like a giant cosmic clock.
Exactly. It's all about bringing structure and rhythm to the world.
And I don't know, it creates this beautiful interplay between the spiritual and the physical. Like we have light first, this divine essence, and then these tangible, visible light sources that we actually like live by.
It's a great point. And even though the sun and moon are described as these great lights, the text makes a point of saying that they were created by God.
Oh yeah, it does.
So even the most powerful things in the universe
Are still subject to the creator.
Exactly. So we've got light, sky, land, plants, and now the celestial bodies.
That's a lot. What's next?
Day 5 brings life to the waters and the sky. Teem with living creatures, God says.
Wow, yeah. And then birds to fly over the earth.
I love that image. The oceans just bursting with life and the sky full of all kinds of birds.
It's incredible, isn't it? And here again we get that phrase according to their kinds.
It does keep coming up.
So even in all this abundance, there's still order, right? Categorization.
Absolutely. It's a blueprint for biodiversity almost.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizes all the different forms of life and how they relate.
And it's so interesting how the creation of sea creatures and birds is described in such a similar way to the land animals on day 6.
That's right. There's this parallel structure, like an echo of the creative process.
It's like a recurring theme.
It is. On day 6, God creates all those land animals, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that move along the ground.
And again, we have according to their kinds.
Yep, that emphasis on order is everywhere. But then finally we get to humankind.
And everything changes.
Everything changes. It's like we shift gears from creating the world to creating these beings who bear the image of God.
That's a big deal. It's like the climax of the whole creation week.
It is. And the way it's described, it's different, it's special.
Yeah, it feels different.
With everything else, God just speaks into existence. But with humankind, God forms man from the dust of the ground.
Right. And breathes life into him.
It's a much more intimate, hands-on act of creation.
It really is. And then that crucial line, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness.
Talk about food for thought.
So many interpretations, so many debates. I mean, what does it actually mean to bear the divine image?
Right. What does that mean? Is it physical, mental? Is it our ability to create, to relate?
It's a mystery, isn't it?
It is. But whatever it is, it's special. It points to this unique connection between humans and the divine.
It's like we're a reflection in some way of God's qualities.
That's one way to look at it. Some scholars talk about rationality, creativity, love.
Yeah, yeah. Or our ability to make moral choices, to think about ourselves.
Exactly. It's about those higher level things, relationships, understanding and appreciating beauty.
Finding meaning and purpose beyond just the physical world.
That's it. And it's so interesting to think about how this idea of being made in God's image affects the instructions God gives us, to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it.
And rule over the other creatures.
That dominion part, wow, it's more relevant than ever.
Especially with everything going on today. Climate change, extinctions.
You've got people arguing for a more responsible approach, like stewardship, taking care of creation.
And then you had others who say, well, it means we can do whatever we want with the Earth's resources.
It's a tough one. It really makes you think about our relationship with nature and the limits of our power.
And about ethics, right? Like, what are the right choices?
Huge questions. And they all tie back to that idea of being made in the image of God.
It's like Genesis gives us this paradox. We're created in God's image, which suggests responsibility, but we're also given dominion.
Right. Which could be seen as power or control.
It's this tension that we're still grappling with today.
And it's right there in the creation story. We see this incredible beauty, this order, this harmony, but we also see the potential for things to go wrong, for us to mess things up.
It's true. Like, even though everything is very good, there's also this sense of fragility.
I think so. Like, we need to be careful. We need to make conscious choices to protect and care for what we've been given.
And that brings us to the end of the creation week,
Where God looks at everything he's made and says, it is very good.
it's such a powerful statement. It's not just an observation.
It's an affirmation. It's a cosmic seal of approval. Like,
Yeah.
everything has inherent goodness, inherent value.
From the smallest creature to, the entire universe. And we're part of that. We share in that goodness.
That's an amazing thought, isn't it? Even with all the problems in the world, there's still hope because creation itself is good.
It's a message that runs through the whole narrative.
And it's a message that speaks to us today, right? It's about appreciating the world around us, recognizing that we're connected to everything.
It's true. I love that. That idea of everything being very good, it's like it's built into creation, right?
I think so, yeah. We see it everywhere in the details, the balance, how everything fits together.
There's this one detail. I love this one. It says, God provides every green plant for food for all living creatures.
Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful one.
It's so simple, but it speaks volumes, doesn't it? About this whole web of life, this amazing balance.
It does. It shows how everything's connected. We're all part of this intricate system.
And it makes you think, right, what happens if we mess that up? Deforestation, pollution, all of that.
It's a good point. The creation story isn't just about where things came from.
It's about how we should live.
Exactly. It's a guide for understanding our place, our responsibilities.
So then what does very good actually mean for creation?
Yeah.
It's more than just things working properly.
Oh, for sure. It's about inherent worth, value that goes beyond just being useful.
It's about recognizing the beauty, the complexity, like all of that is an expression of the creator. So it's not just what creation does, it's what it is.
You got it. And that can change how we think about our own creative stuff, our art, our work even.
Our relationships even. If we're made in the image of a God who creates things that are very good.
What does that mean for us?
That's a big question.
It is.
You said earlier that the creation story is like a framework for understanding our place in the world.
I did.
I really like that. It's not just a story about the past.
It's a story that shapes us
right
now and going forward. It gives us principles, ideas about how to live, how to treat each other, how to care for the earth.
It's a reminder that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, that everything is connected.
And that we should try to live in a way that reflects the goodness of creation.
That's beautiful. So I guess as we wrap up this deep dive into Genesis, we have one final question for you. If you were to create something very good, what would it be and why? What would you bring into the world that would reflect that same sense of purpose, of goodness that we see in creation? We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.